This is the Inside Investment Banking series. This first presentation is Investment Banking 101, just a high level of what investment banking is. And the whole purpose of this series is to help college students prepare for their internship search by demystifying the process of what it's like to recruit for and work in investment banking. A little bit about me. I graduated from Georgetown with a degree in business a few years ago. But while I was in college, did a couple of internships at a few of the banks and ended up interning in investment banking after my junior year. I was at Goldman Sachs in their healthcare group. I then got the full-time offer and returned to the healthcare group in investment banking full-time after graduation, completed the 2-year analyst program, and then spent a year as an investment banking campus recruiter. So I wanted to create this series because I wanted to leverage my background, and one of the things that I noticed was that I wanted to make sure that going into the process, you actually understood from a high level what investment banking was. And there are a ton more resources out there that go into way more detail than I'm going to go into here, but this just provides the basic framework. So for those who don't have finance backgrounds or really just want to better understand what investment banking is, hopefully this will help. So investment banks serve two main roles, advisory and execution. So if you take a step back and you think of a company, so in this case, let's use like Twitter. And Twitter, ultimately their goal is to return value to their shareholders. So if we think back to what investment banks do, on the one hand, they're kind of like consultants. So they're going to provide advice to Twitter on different things like their business strategy. So are there companies that you should think about merging with? You know, you're in social media. Maybe you should think about going and finding another company out there and merging with them to become one larger social media company. Or you can think about acquiring a different company. So what that means is going out and buying a company, or maybe even selling yourself. There are tons of different types of business strategy topics that you can touch on, even divestitures. Then we also provide advice on capital structure. So for example, Twitter was a private company that wanted to go public. So they wanted to trade on the New York Stock Exchange. So we would provide advice on what that process looks like, how to know what's the right timing, questions you can expect. That falls into the bucket of equity. So when you think of equity, that has anything to do with stock, trading on an exchange, etc. Then there's the debt side of things. So thinking about, do you have too much debt on your books? Do you owe too many people money? Maybe the markets are really good right now, rates are lower. You may want to think about refinancing your debt. You may even want to think about restructuring your capital structure. So looking at your balance of debt and equity and thinking if that is the ideal place you want to be at. And finally, thinking back to returning value to your shareholders, some companies do that in the form of dividends. So thinking about your dividend strategy. And then on a separate note, kind of looking at ownership. So are there different activist investors who own a ton of your stock? Think someone like a Carl Icahn. So banks, for example, again, a Twitter might come to a bank to ask them for help on thinking through how to manage some of these large shareholders and what to do if they decide they want to buy more and they start pounding their fist in terms of wanting specific board members on. Then on the execution side, everything I just mentioned on the advisory side would kind of fall into the execution bucket, and this is where banks make their money. So if you're hired by Twitter to help them with their IPO, you get a percentage of how large the deal was, and that of course requires a lot of negotiation. But you help execute on, whether they want to merge or buy another company, or think about doing any of these debt or equity financings as well. In terms of the structure of an investment bank, they're divided into two types of groups: industry or sector groups and product groups. So on the industry side, as you can imagine, all the different sectors are covered, from consumer retail companies to, like our example, Twitter, technology, media, and telecom companies. Then on the product side, there are three main products. Of course, there are a lot more niche products included in here as well that I didn't put on the slide. But at a high level, you have your mergers and acquisitions group, an equity capital markets group, and a debt capital markets group. And embedded within either this global capital markets, both debt and equity, you can have, investment grade debt, leveraged finance on the debt side, then thinking about interest rate derivatives, structured finance. So there are a lot more product groups than what are listed here. The one thing I'll also mention is that some banks, make sure you look at the bank structure, because some banks actually have their mergers and acquisitions group within their industry groups. So a lot of people will tell you that within the products group, that's actually where you do a lot of the modeling. But if your mergers and acquisitions group is embedded within your industry group, then you'll actually get to do a lot of that modeling work within the industry group as well. So for those who are in the industry groups, you know the specifics of your industry. You understand the trends, you understand what makes it tick. You also get to see many different types of deals. So all the products that are listed on the right side, you get to see those. And then you're also the first point of contact for the client relationship. So as you can imagine, it was probably the technology, media, and telecom deal that was helping, that had the relationship with Twitter before the equity capital markets team was brought in to help manage the IPO. Then on the product side, you'll work across a ton of different sectors, which, if you really want expertise in a product, is a great way for you to understand how, at a high level, your product works in different industries. So a model for healthcare, of course, might look different from a tech company. In terms of what the career trajectory looks like, if you're coming right out of undergrad, you'll start out as an analyst. If you're graduating and have just gotten your MBA, you'll likely start out as an associate. But an analyst is the one who kind of executes all the analytics and puts together all the content for any materials that are being put together. As an associate, you understand everything the analyst is doing. So you oversee the analytics, and you also help manage the process. So if you're working with Twitter and they are looking to sell themselves, then you're the one who is kind of overseeing the process with the different buyers, making sure that each buyer has what they need, managing calls, making sure they have all the materials needed to do all the diligence. Then the next level up is this vice president, director, executive director role, depending on which bank you're at. And in that role, you pretty much serve as the project leader. So again, you oversee everything that the analyst and associate is doing, but you're the one who is kind of putting together the strategy for what you want the materials to look like, or what you envision the process looking like. And at the same time, you're kind of building up your relationship with clients and starting to build your own book. Finally, the most senior level is the managing director, and at some places, the partner level. And in this role, you're really the trusted advisor to the client and the one managing the client relationship. So as you can see, there really is an evolution from an analyst who is very much in the numbers and putting together materials, to the managing director role, where you're presenting the material to the client and really being the first point of contact for them. So that is an overview of what investment banking is. Hopefully this was helpful. I know it was very high level and fairly basic, but if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. My Twitter handle is here. I'm Tiffany Yu, and then the hashtag InsideIBD. And if there are any other types of videos you'd like to see, definitely let me know, but otherwise stay tuned for the next video.